everyone, and welcome back to Towers. This video is for those of you who are marketers or content creators. You know how difficult it is to actually come up with the content that is about to go live on your website or on your social media platforms. But to repurpose that same content for different platforms is so much more of a headache. In this video, I'll show you how you can use an AI agent to automate the entire repurposing part. And I'll also show you how you can build this AI agent and customize it for your specific needs. So let's get started. We are going to start by clicking this Add a Gambit button. A gambit is basically, if a conversation is made up of steps, then a gambit is one step in a conversation. And our entire AI agent is going to be made with gambits that are both structured, as in they have no AI in it, or AI gambits which have AI involved. So the first step is to name this gambit, and just some good naming practices are to ensure that you only use lowercase and you don't involve any spaces. Always use underscores. This gambit has the name welcome message because this is going to be the first message that the user sees when they start interacting with your AI agent. Now I'm just going to edit the welcome message, and I'll keep it really simple and similar to the already existing template. Now that I have all the content of the first message, I'm just going to go here and turn this into a button input. And this button is going to divide the conversation flow into two parts. One where the user provides a URL and one where they copy paste the content. I'm just going to go over here and ensure branching is enabled, which means that each button is going to take a different branch or a different path. And the other thing that I like to do is to enable detach mode right here. This is purely for cosmetic purposes. Click save. And this is the first gambit. You'll always be able to tell what the first gambit is because it has a gray node over here, where other gambits, like this one for example, has a red node. Now I'm just going to add two gambits over here for each of the buttons, and these are going to be the two different parts in the conversation flow. Just connect the buttons, just connect the nodes to each other, and let's take this one. Again, I'm going to rename this so that it's easy for me to recognize what is happening when I look at the conversation flow. I'm going to call this link prompt. And here I will just simply space the URL of it. And I'm going to turn this into a no input gambit. Same thing over here. I'm going to call this paste prompt. Copy, connect. And once again, this is going to be a no input gambit. One thing to note is that all of these gambits are basic, right? So this is a very simple structured gambit right here. Now we're going to add another gambit, and this is going to be an AI agent gambit. So the first step is to click this drop down and choose AI agent. Make sure you name it as, and click save, and do the same thing here. Just ensure that all of these are connected to each other. And now we'll start with the prompting of this AI agent gambit. All you have to do is click this edit base prompt and provide just a very simple set of instructions because this agent has only one thing to do. It has to use Firecrawl to scrape the content of the URL. Click save. Go to the default messages section and ensure everything is deleted. Now for an AI agent gambit to work, it needs to be attached to a tool. It doesn't matter if the AI agent would actually use that tool, but for it to work properly, it does need a tool attached to it. And in this one, we are going to use the tool. First, we'll change the AI tool setting, and now we'll call this. Now that we have Firecrawl attached to it, you can see that it renamed itself. And simply attach this tool to the AI agent gambit. What I like to do for agents that don't really need a tool but they need that tool to function properly, I'll just use a tool that I don't normally use for the flow. So I'll go with something like Jiffy Search over here. And this is just to let me know that there isn't a tool actually being used. Same thing here, I've attached it. Again, I'll go to the paste agent and also edit the prompt, keeping it very, very simple. So here it says the user will paste content, analyze the content. Very simple, very straightforward. Similarly, for the firecrawl agent, it says the base prompt says that the user will provide a URL, use firecrawl to scrape the URL. Now I'll add another agent which lets the user decide what path or what kind of content they want to repurpose their existing content into. So both of these AI agent gambits will get attached here, and I'm going to name this user path, or you can name it something like user choice, whatever makes sense to you. Just edit the preview message. And here I'm going to add all the buttons that I use or the kind of content that I like to make on a very regular basis. So one of them is going to be this is where you have the freedom to choose whatever it is that you like to create regularly. If for example, email newsletters are not something that you do very often, but you rather would make video scripts that help you talk about that content and distribute it well, then this is an option you can add over here, and you can make a workflow or a conversational flow that helps you do that. Again, I'm going to go to the settings here, ensure branching is enabled, and detach mode just for cosmetic purposes. And since I've added 3 buttons and branching is enabled, it has now given me 3 different nodes for 3 different paths that my user can take. And just because I added social media posts, I'm going to add one more gambit that allows the user to choose what social media or what kind of posts they want to create. Make it platform specific. Just renaming this and adding buttons. Similarly, give a prompt for the user, a preview message for the user, like once again, branching is enabled, detach mode is enabled. Now we're going to divide it into each specific path based on the kind of content we want to create. And as always, the first step in all the conversational flows is to ensure that we're getting the user's preferences. So the next series of gambits that are going to come for each of these prompts, they are going to let the user talk about what it is that they want. For example, the length of the post, or if there are certain words that they want it to be, or a theme that they want it to be on, what the CTA is, and all of that. So let's just use simple basic gambits to get all of the user's preferences together. Now I'll just attach these 2 nodes to each other. And this is going to be the path that the user who wants to create a blog out of their repurposed content, this is the path that they will take. So I'm just going to name this blog keyword. And the reason why I'm naming this the blog keyword is because this is where I'll ask the user to input what keyword it is that they want to optimize their blog for. I'll change the preview message also. What keyword would you like to optimize the blog for? And so far we have mostly used buttons as the input for the user, but here we're just going to leave it at the default one, which is text. So just save this. Now we'll attach another gambit. In this gambit, we are going to ask the user to put in the number of words or the length of the blog. So again, rename the gambit. And the preview message is how long should the blog be. You can change this according to your needs. I'm just putting a bunch of button options, which will be like 500 words or less, 500 to 750 words, or more than 1,000 words. Always ensure branching is an option. In this step, when we go to the settings, we can remove the branching option because no matter what the user answers, we still want them to go to the next step. It's going to be the same step for all the answers. And the next step will be how many sections should the blog have. I'm enabling detach mode again for cosmetic purposes. Click save, add another gambit. Attach them. I've named it blog sections. And based on the kind of blogs that you write, you can change the number of sections. For example, if you are writing for your business, then you might always follow a similar format of only 5 sections or 10 sections. This is up to you. You can change them as you like. And I'm just going to put buttons here because I only want to follow, let's just say 4, 6 or 10 sections for any blog that I make. Again, since the user is going to follow the same path irrespective of the question of their answer, I'm going to disable branching for this gambit. Finally, I'm going to ask the user about the CTA that they want to add at the end of the blog. And here I want the user to type the CTA in their own words, so I'm just going to leave it as a text input. Click save. Attach the gambits. Finally, we want to add one gambit which lets the user know what all we have discussed and what basis or parameters it's going to generate the blog on. So I've named it blog user preferences. Whenever you want to reference a user's response to a previous gambit, this is what you do. You use these curly brackets or braces as they are called, and you can just use URSP, which stands for user response, and then you add the name of the gambit. So here it is going to be blog keyword. Now that I've selected this code is going to reflect what the user answered in the previous gambit when they were being asked for the keyword to optimize the blog on. And I'll just do the same for each of the user responses that we've taken so far. Here I have covered all the things that I've already discussed or the AI agent has already discussed with the user. And finally, it's going to ask for a little prompt, which is, do you want me to generate the blog now? You might think that this is an unnecessary step, but what we are going to do here is to turn this into a no input gambit, right? And we do this because when the user types yes or gives some response, in the next gambit, which is going to be the AI agent gambit that actually generates the blog, that's going to be a prompt for that agent to start generating. Because an AI agent gambit is not going to start generating unless a user gives it some kind of response or prompt to begin. So just click save, attach the gambit. And now we are going to add a new gambit. We're going to follow the same process that we did for the AI agent gambit, which is to turn this into an agent, call it agent underscore blog, remove all the default messages. And here we're going to edit the base prompt so that the AI agent can generate the blog exactly the way you like it. Editing the base prompt for this agent is where you have the maximum control on how that generated blog should turn out. Whether you want to provide some business context, or if you want to add certain instructions and parameters that are specific to your brand or your company, this is where you put it in. When you are writing instructions for this AI agent Gambit, you also need to remember to let it know what is the context that has previously been discussed. And you will use the same code, ursp.gambit name. You're going to use that same thing to let the AI agent know what to reference at what point and what it means. So I'm just going to paste a prompt that I already have. But let's just go through it one by one. So it begins with the user has provided content to be repurposed into a blog. Then it follows through all of the content that has already been described. For example, the blog keyword, the word count, the number of sections, all of it. Then the instructions go on to say, repurpose the user shared content into a blog as per the given specifications. Follow these guidelines while generating the blog. And in general, these are all the instructions that you can add and you can customize for your needs. Finally, click Save Prompt. Ensure that chat history is turned on. This is so that the agent can reference what the previous conversation was in all the structured and basic gambits. And click Save. Attach these gambits to each other, and as you remember, an AI agent gambit will only work well, or it will only function well when it has a tool attached to it. But while this AI agent isn't actually using a tool, I'm just going to use a very random tool here. For example, Jiffy Search. And just attach this to the AI agent. Finally, if you want to keep making iterations or you want the AI agent gambit to follow further instructions from the user, for example, the user might say, hey, thanks for generating this blog, but now can you change the keyword? For that, you will just attach this gambit back to itself. And that means the conversation keeps looping, or it keeps going on within the same gambit. And there you go, one path is complete. We're just going to follow very similar steps for the next two. So we'll start with the social media path. And this gambit says, what platform would you like to optimize it for? This is going to be a LinkedIn post or a Twitter thread. So we're going to create two paths for it. One for a LinkedIn post and another one for a Twitter thread. Now that I've attached the gambits, I'm going to start with the LinkedIn post one. I've named it LinkedIn post writing style. And now you can really see why it's important to name the gambits in a way that you can understand what is happening within them, because you'll have to reference this later on at the AI agent gambit. I'm going to add buttons over here. I'll go into the settings and disable branching for this one, because no matter what the user answers, they still have to follow the path and go to the next gambit. The next step, this is a basic gambit that's going to ask the user about the length of the LinkedIn post. Once again, I'm going to disable branching, enable detach mode, and click Save. Now I'll add another basic gambit that's going to ask the user about who the target audience is for this LinkedIn post. For this one, I don't want to add any buttons because the target audience could be anyone from the general public to marketers, and this is specific to my use case. But whatever is your use case, if you want to attach buttons here to make the conversation flow easier, you can obviously do that. Now I'll add a final user input gambit, which is going to ask the user what CTA should be attached to the LinkedIn post. And once again, I'm going to leave this as a text input so that the user can type in their own words, whatever it is that they want the CTA to be. Add another gambit, and finally, like you can see for the blog user preferences, we are going to now reiterate the user preferences that the user has given for the LinkedIn post. So you can say, great, here's what I've gathered about your preferences. Using the same braces and then ursp.gambit name to reiterate what the user answered or reference what the user answered in a previous gambit. And now we have covered all the 4 things that we have asked the user previously in the conversation. I'm just going to add a question over here, which is, would you like me to generate the post now? And this again is going to become a no input gambit, so that the first message that the user gives goes to the next gambit and it acts as a trigger for that agent to do its work. Click save and add a new gambit, which is going to be our LinkedIn post writer agent. So I'm going to choose AI agent here, remove the default messages and give it a name. Again, the magic always happens within the base prompt of any AI agent gambit. So this is again where you're going to put in your set of instructions, your preferences. If you want to add any brand context, put it all here. And one of the things that works really well for most AI agents is if you give it enough examples of the kind of output you want it to generate. So, like the last one, I have given it the context of what was discussed previously with the user about their preferences, such as the user preferred writing style for the LinkedIn post is URSP LinkedIn _writing _ style. And here I have given it guidelines on how to generate the LinkedIn post. For example, every post must follow this exact format. The hook must be, the first 2 lines must be bold, standalone, statement. And finally, I have given examples of the different kinds of posts that it should make so that it can understand what it is you really want to create. Finally, click Save Prompt, ensure that the chat history toggle is active and click Save. Attach these 2 gambits to each other and as always, attach a random tool so that the AI agent gambit functions properly. As always, I'm choosing Jiffy Search and just attaching it back to the AI agent gambit. And again, since I want to reiterate or have a conversation with this AI agent gambit, I'm just going to take this node and loop it back to itself. So now the conversation will keep on going within this AI agent gambit itself. And now this path is complete. We will follow similar steps to create the path where the agent creates a Twitter thread for the user. So let's get some context. This gambit is where we ask the user whether they'd want to create a LinkedIn post or a Twitter thread, and the second button creates the path for the Twitter thread. Now for this gambit, we're going to name this gambit tweet number, and we'll ask the user how many tweets should this thread include. I'm going to add button options here. 4 to 6 tweets, 7 to 9 tweets, and 10 to 12 tweets. I'm going to go to settings and enable detach mode and disable branching, because no matter what the user chooses, we want them to follow the same path. Now I'll add another gambit, attach the 2 gambits, and this gambit is going to be named style. I'll ask the user, what style do you want for this Twitter thread? And once again, I'm going to make it a button option. The first option is narrative and story driven. The second option is humorous and comical. And the third option is direct and to the point. Once again, in the settings, branching is off, detach mode is on, click save, and we move on to the next gambit. Attach the 2 gambits and name this tweet details, because on Twitter you can have all kinds of posts and you might want to add certain details to it. So here I'll just ask the user to input any context or details that they want specifically for this Twitter thread. This can include things like a target audience or any business context or even a CTA. I'm going to leave this open to the user, so it's going to have a plain text input. And now I'll click save. Now that I've added another gambit, this is going to be the one which is a no input gambit that reiterates whatever has been discussed with the user so far. I'm going to name it Twitter User Preferences. And in the text input, it's going to be, hey, this is what we've discussed so far. Using the same braces and then ursp.gambit name code, we are going to reiterate everything that the user has answered before. So the number of tweets is ursp tweet number. The style is ursp tweet style. And any additional details are ursp.tweet_details. Now I'm going to click here and turn this into a no input gambit. And we've discussed why this is important to do if the next gambit is going to be an agent gambit. Click save. Add another gambit, and this is going to be your agent gambit, which generates the thread of tweets. I've named it Twitter Agent, and I'm going to go to this drop down and turn this into an AI agent gambit. Next, I'm just going to remove the default messages. Click Edit Prompt and add your set of instructions to this AI agent base prompt. Again, let's see how we've structured this. I have ensured that in the first stage itself, the AI agent has context to what it's meant to do, as the user has provided content to be repurposed into a Twitter thread. The user has specified the number of tweets to be generated as braces ursp tweet number, and this is where the user would have chosen either 4 tweets or 6 tweets or 12 tweets based on the options that were given to them before. Similarly, we have covered the style and the details. Next, we have described what is the role of the agent, which is to generate a Twitter thread using the user's content and preferred length and style. Finally, I've provided the guidelines, and I've also given example threads, because when you give examples to an AI agent, it can really then understand what its final output should be like. Now click Save Prompt and save this gambit. Again, I'm going to attach a random tool, which is going to be Jiffy, to this AI agent to ensure that it works properly. And finally, I am going to loop this back to itself with this node, so that once the user enters this gambit, they can keep conversing with this AI agent to reiterate or make changes to their generated Twitter thread. Now this path is complete, and we have one final path left to make, which is the email newsletter. I am just going to attach this gambit to the original one and name this email newsletter type, because this is where the agent will provide options for the user for the kind of newsletter they want to generate. It is asking, what kind of newsletter would you like your content to be turned into? I'll again provide button options. The options that I have given are promotional, educational, and product update, and you can change this or customize it for your needs to automate your own marketing workflow. I'll go to settings and ensure branching is off and detach mode is on. Click save. Now I'll add another gambit. Connect the two, and this gambit is going to be called email brand context. Now this is a very optional step, because if you're going to make your own AI agent who follows a similar pattern, you wouldn't need as a user to give that context each time. You can build it directly into the prompt. But this is specific for those people who are just going to be using the agent and provide the brand context every single time they want to generate a newsletter. So here the agent is asking, can you tell me briefly about the brand associated with this newsletter? For example, your personal brand or your business. In the second message, it says, please ensure to highlight any brand values or recent updates that are relevant to the newsletter. And this is going to be a text input for the user because the user can type in their own words what is the context about their brand or about their product. Click Save and add another gambit. Ensure it is attached. And this gambit is called email_newsletter_length. We're just going to ask the user how long the newsletter should be. I'm going to add button options here. The first option is short, under 500 words. Second option is medium, 500 to 750 words. And the last option is long, which is 1000 words. Go to settings and ensure branching is off, detach mode is on, and click save. Now I'm going to add another gambit, and here I'm going to ask the user for the CTA. So the name of the gambit is email CTA, and the agent will ask what CTA should be added at the end of the newsletter. I'm going to leave this as a simple text input. Now we'll add another gambit. And this gambit is once again going to reiterate to the user by using the URSP code to reference what has already been discussed. I'm going to call this email_user_preferences. The agent says, great, here are your preferences for your email newsletter. The type is defined by ursp.email_newsletter_type. And as always, whatever the gambit name is, if you want to reference that, you just have to add the gambit name after ursp dot. Similarly for the length and the context, and lastly for the CTA as well. Now I'm going to turn this into a no input gambit so that the next message that the user types becomes a trigger for the AI agent gambit that will come after this to start performing its task. Add another gambit, and this is your AI agent gambit. Just attach it, change it to agent, give it a name, and remove the default message. Like with the previous AI agent gambits, the prompt is where you get to really personalize what the final output looks like and give it as many instructions as needed to ensure that its final output aligns with what you want. I've pasted an existing agent prompt that I have. Let's take a look at it. You are a newsletter ghostwriter. The user has shared their content, which you have to repurpose into an email newsletter based on the user's preferences. The user has provided their preferences as follows: the type of newsletter, along with the URSP code, the brand context, the length, the call to action, very similar to what we've already done for the previous AI agents. Now click Save Prompt and save it here and attach a random tool so that the AI agent functions properly. Go to the tool setting, select Jiffy and click Save. Finally, we loop it back to itself, so once the user reaches this gambit, the user can keep on talking to the AI agent to further make their email newsletter even better. And there we go, we have covered the entire flow for all kinds of different repurposing for just one piece of content. Now we can just go to the design section and change the look and feel of our AI agent. I'm going to choose this theme and I'll go here and give it a name. Click Save Changes, Publish, and you can click right here to start talking to your content repurposer AI agent right away. Happy automating, and let me know what you would want for me to make next that you can use every day and that will help you automate a big chunk of your workflow.